Welcome, everyone. This is our Best Friends Annual Blessing, and my name is Patty Hegwood, and I am delighted to see you all here today. We are very fortunate to have Shelley DeMarco here on the sound bowls, and also she will be delivering our benediction later in the program. But we have plenty of things that we want to talk to you about today, and we also are going to hear from our caregivers and wonderful staff. What I would like for everyone to do right now, the theme that came up for me as I was thinking about this blessing was trust. The word trust. Trust that we are well, trust that things will be well, trust that we are all here together for one reason, and that is to support one another and honor our loved ones who've gone on before us. So I'd like you all to take and put your hand over your heart. And Shelley's gonna give us just a little bit more volume, and I want us to take 3 deep breaths. And center ourselves and open our hearts. Open our hearts to the message that we will be receiving today. That's so beautiful, isn't it? I could listen to that all day. So I brought Anne Mejia up here earlier to talk about the stones and the story of the stones, but I want to formally introduce her. Not only is Anne one of our co-founders, but she's the guiding force and visionary behind what you see here and how Angels Rest has developed, and she's going to talk to us a little bit more about that today. But I also want to acknowledge Anne as one of my mentors and one of the kindest people I know. And we also crack each other up, which is good.
Sometimes when we shouldn't be. We go back a long way. And I just want to thank Shelley for bringing this beautiful energy and presence of the bowls with us today. Thank you so much. And for leading this, Patty, with your love and kindness. That is the thing that is very present here, is the love and kindness that we feel for the animals and that they bring out in us. They bring the best out in us, don't they? So when we're here at Angels Rest and we take a moment to just be here, we feel something very different, I believe, than when we visit other cemeteries. There's a different presence, there's a different feeling. There's a microphone right there, okay? Thank you, Patty. And when you walk through, you will see all these wind chime trees. And they will carry messages of love and cherishing and honoring in the most beautiful words. Take a moment to read them. But I want to tell you something very magical. When we first created Angels Rest, Paul Eckhoff, one of our founders who's now passed, was an architect, and he helped design many of the buildings on the property. And you'll see a basset hound statue over there. That's in honor of his basset birdie. He had bassets all the time in his life. So Paul wanted to create a place, a space where we could honor the animals that began to pass in our early years here. Some were our own animals and some the animals in our care. And so we looked for a place, and this was perfect because it was tucked in against the cliffs with a beautiful view that way. A lot of beautiful trees in it that we kept, none came down. We built everything around the trees. And it was his idea to have wind chimes and to build trees. So these were Paul's idea. And I want to tell you something magical about them. We will be tucking someone in here to rest. That's what we say, we tuck them in to rest. It'll be a really quiet day. There won't be a breeze like this, really quiet. And when they're tucked in, right, Josh? Every time the chimes start to sing like this. That's magic. That is beauty. And it's like the words on those chimes are being lifted into the air, and there's this kind of just tenderness that's welcoming another special one to be with the others that are here. And this is permanent. They're safe here. So many people from all around the country have brought their precious little ones to be here, like Sephora, who came from San Francisco. And they've come from all over to bring their special, precious ones here because they'll be safe and cared for. And speaking of cared for, Josh, James, where's James? James is busy. There you are, James, okay. And Byron here take such beautiful care of Angel's Rest. And what they do everywhere is more than just tucking in and placing memorials. They're always taking care of the grounds, making sure everything is in place. And they help volunteers participate in the care too, which changes their lives. There are little groups of kids from schools that come here and work and volunteer here. And they go home talking about their experience here at Angel's Rest. It's a very powerful place. And I just want to thank you all for being here to honor the lives of whomever you're going to be honoring. And I know it's hard sometimes. There's tears, but there's also joy. And all of this is a deep, profound experience we all experience together. It's not different, it's the same. And because we understand that with each other here, we're safe experiencing that together. It might not be something that other people understand back home, but it's understood here. So let's take this time and just let ourselves be present with the feelings and just give our love and honoring. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Anne. The chimes, it never gets old, ever, ever. So I'm proud to announce our caregiving staff. They are so very near and dear to my heart. These are folks who are super dedicated to the work that they do, but it's not really work, it's more of a calling. And the dedication and to serving the animals that come into their care is bar none. A lot of the animals that come into our care, this might be their first experience with tenderness, their first experience with a kind and loving heart that takes them in exactly for who they are, doesn't try to change them, allows those personalities to develop, and then they grow together. The thing that I think a lot of people don't know is that most of our caregivers, if not all, have animals at home too. So their circle is very wide. They have their kids at home and their kids at, I don't want to call it work, I just can't, because it's not. One of the things that I heard a long time ago, I said, what's your favorite part of the day? And that's turning the corner to come into the sanctuary, because they know they're going to see their kids. And so it's not just, even though it's very important, if you ask the dogs that they eat, and you ask everyone else, yes. It's important that they eat and they get good medical care and they get all of the, essentials. But only scratches the surface of what is provided to the animals in our care. It's the enrichment, it's the car rides, it's the golf cart rides, it's meeting new people, it's not meeting new people. It depends on exactly what it is they want. But underneath all of that, or actually the overarching theme, is that they're getting what they need. And they communicate very, very distinctly what they need. And it's up to our caregivers to actually communicate in a way that they are hearing and feeling what is going on with these guys. Because the biggest thing is to make sure that they're successful. And we measure success by so many things. Of course, we'd love them all to go into homes, but sometimes that's not possible. But that's okay, because this is the next best thing. And then we are able to provide the enrichment they need in order to live fulfilled lives. And my goodness, we get about 30,000 visitors who get to go, see how they live and get to interact with a lot of our animals. But at the cornerstone of this care is also the trust. Trust comes up again. They trust. There's a bond of trust between the caregivers and the animals in their care. We're not going to push them into doing things that they don't want or that will cause them discomfort, because that's not a measure of success. And that's why when you go through the animal areas, you see that there are rafters for the cats. The cats can say, not today. Not dealing with people walking through here. No, and that's okay, we honor that. And they are all very clear in their communication. So I would like to welcome up Arabelle with Cat World, and Arabelle is going to kick us off.
Hi everyone, my name is Arabelle and I'm a caregiver in Cat World. If I could, I would honor every life that we said goodbye to this year with a story about their time with us. But in turn, I'm just going to talk about one kitty who touched me in a special way, who was especially difficult to say goodbye to this year. This is my little buddy Grey Wolf. Sorry. Grey Wolf arrived at the sanctuary in April of 2024. She was not with us for very long compared to some of our residents, just over a year, but she very quickly earned a reputation in Cat World. She initially did not really like people, and she was not afraid to show this fact to us. So she was a little bit of a spicy lady. When she first arrived, she moved into Colonel's Barracks, which is a building where we house cats who are friendly, healthy, social, usually more easily adopted out. And the caregivers in Colonel's Barracks tried really hard to get Grey Wolf to like us. They gave her lots of really special treats, pet her in places that they knew she liked to be touched. But she just honestly wasn't really having it. So after about a month in Colonel's, she moved on to Benton's house, which for those of you who don't know is where we house our feral kitties and cats who are really shy. So cats who just would really rather not have human friends. And Benton's does socializing a little differently. Cats who decide that they may want human friends are encouraged, but otherwise interactions are all up to them. We let them initiate in Benton's house. And it turns out that that approach worked really well for Grey Wolf. She learned that humans were maybe not so terrible. And she actually started to enjoy pets, enjoy human attention, and she made some friends with caregivers over in Benton's. And it was really amazing to see the progress she made with our caregivers and kind of her new opinion on humans and having human friends. So Grey Wolf continued to thrive over in Benton's house. Probably about 6 or 7 months into her time there, she did start to develop some health issues, so weight loss. She did start to have seizures. Thankfully, hers were always very mild, but that's obviously a really big red flag in an otherwise healthy animal. So we brought Grey Wolf to the clinic, and we found out that she had a tumor in her head and thyroid cancer. She was perfectly happy and otherwise healthy at the time, so we said, you know what, medication, and let's make her as happy as possible. So she started some medication, and she initially went back to Benton's house, but she eventually moved to Morgan's place, where we have other cats who have seizures. And that way she could just have some more specialized attention and get the care she needed there. Morgan's Place is where I was lucky enough to meet and care for Grey Wolf. I have to admit that when I first met her, I was a little nervous to work with her. Her reputation preceded her. Every time I did something new with her for the first time, you know, the first time I gave her meds, the first time I gave her fluids, it was always kind of a moment of, is this where I'm going to see that side of her? And I never saw it. We became pretty good buddies pretty quickly. She was, you know, just always a highlight of my day. She was kind of an older lady, so she liked to kind of just rest on the corner, on the sidelines. But she would always come out for breakfast and sit at my feet. And she never meowed, she never pawed at me. She just very politely waited patiently for breakfast. And she learned that pets were so awesome that even whenever I had to give her fluid, she would start purring. So didn't matter that a needle was in her, she was just happy that I was touching her. But you know, like all the other animals we're talking about today, no amount of time with her would have been long enough. Grey Wolf was only in my care for about 4 months, and this past May, we had to say goodbye to her. I came into work one morning and she let me know that it was her time. She was in a bad way, and I knew, you know, right off the bat it was going to be a hard day for us. So we brought her to the clinic, and we found out that her cancer had metastasized to her lungs. And the doctor told us that the condition of her lungs was so advanced that she expected that she would have been gone months ago. So Grey Wolf was an incredible fighter. We had no idea that it had advanced that far. There's Grey Wolf. And she was just one tough little cookie. Like, as I said, we had zero idea that it was coming. And it was a really hard loss for us because, like I said, it was very sudden and we didn't really have time to prepare ourselves. But one thing that will always stay with me about Grey Wolf and her passing was the way she looked at me that last morning when I came into work. You know, not to go into detail, but she was in a scary situation. And she and I made eye contact. And she just relaxed. And it was almost as if she was saying, oh, you're here, I'm safe now. And it's a hard feeling to explain, but to know that an animal who once wanted nothing to do with humans now found peace, comfort, and safety in my presence in her most vulnerable moment is a moment that I will cherish forever. She was a very special cat, and like I said, my time with her was much too short, but I'm incredibly thankful for the time that I did have with her.
Well, my name's Melissa, and I work at Parrots. Here. Would you mind holding him for me? That would be amazing. Thank you. I love that. So right now I'm talking about Rio, this blue guy. Rio came to us with his partner, Bo, the red bird you can sort of see next to him. In 2019, Rio is a blue and gold macaw and Bo is a scarlet macaw. We know very little about their past. We don't even know how old they are. We estimated Rio to be about in his 30s. Macaws and a lot of other parrots will mate for life. Like, that's their partner. And we are unsure of how long they were bonded before coming to us. As I continue to talk about Rio, I'm also going to talk about Bo, because they were so bonded that they liked all the same things and went literally everywhere together. We often affectionately joked that between the both of them, they shared one singular brain cell. So that's why they could never be separated. They would just malfunction. Their favorite activities included destroying boxes filled with enrichment, ripping up newspaper that was supposed to make their cage easier for us to clean, and turning our central aviary and our headquarters building into a disaster zone that every volunteer would look at and just fear. Rio's passing was a very unexpected one. About a month later, we still catch ourselves saying Bo and Rio when we talk about Bo. Bo is definitely grieving, and he's actually kind of learning how to trust us as a single bird. So we're kind of getting to know him for the first time. We will potentially bond him with another bird in the future, but when he's ready. That's both of them together. You can see Rio's love and devotion to Bo. Rio didn't have the brain cell very often. Bo was kind of his protector. So this cute little guy, that's Miter, the mitrid conure. He was really hard to get photos of because every time you went up to his cage to take a photo, he would freeze and stop what he was doing. He would stop doing the cute thing. But Miter hatched around 1993, or so we think. We don't know much about his past, just that he much preferred the company of other birds over us humans. For this reason, he went through at least 4 homes in his lifetime. He was originally adopted from us in 2020, but due to no fault of his own, he was returned to us last year. We moved him into our shy, quiet bird room in our headquarters building, where he could quietly live out his life, chatting with his neighbors and screaming at us pesky humans to move faster when he heard the afternoon treat cart coming down the hallway. 32 is a very advanced age for a conure like him. And so when he came back to us, he was almost completely blind and had severe arthritis. We made sure the bottom of his cage was lined with a thick layer of fleece, as you can kind of see in the photo. And so he would lay down. He would fully lay down to take the weight off of his feet, which would often scare us and many volunteers with how relaxed he would look when he did this. I stopped many times outside of his door just to make sure that he was still breathing. Besides napping, his other favorite pastime was digging through his daily foraging box looking for fun snacks. Even with all of his medical issues, he was a sassy little senior full of life till the very end when he told us it was time. So yeah, a little photo of his little fleece nest. He liked to kind of nestle himself in there. So these are not photos of the actual smaller birds that we lost this year, but I just wanted to show you some of our little aviary birds, which is who I'll be talking about right now. So we lost 6 budgies this year. Budgies are commonly just called parakeets. They're just a type of parakeet. So we lost Phoebe, Yucca, Barnacle Boy, Blackbeard, George, and Sandy. And we also lost 3 cockatiels, so the gray birds, Alfie, Hank, and Ada Lovelace. We tend to theme name our birds when they come in large groups. These 9 birds were lucky in the sense that they lived part of their lives with us in an aviary setting within a flock with lots of bird friends. Many budgies and cockatiels sold at pet stores often start their lives in bird mills before being sold to pet stores and then to well-intentioned people looking to add a new pet to their lives. Unfortunately, because of their small size, these birds are often labeled as starter pets. And often people don't do the proper research to learn that budgies can live over 10 years and cockatiels can live over 30. Due to misinformation from many pet stores, lots of these smaller parrot species spend their lives living in tiny cages. Just because they are small does not mean that they don't require all the same things that larger parrots do. I can honestly say that I don't know any of these 9 birds very well, and I'm okay with that because during their time with us, they were given the opportunity to spread their wings and fly around with their aviary friends, mimicking more of a normal flock environment like their wild cousins enjoy. Visitors to Parrot Garden are often surprised that we have more budgies and cockatiels than any other parrot species because they've either grown up with them or, they've heard that they're a lot easier to take care of because of their small size. But the reality is that we have so many because of how easy it is to buy these smaller parrots from the pet stores. Parrots do not belong in captivity. I wish my job didn't exist. They should be flying free in the wild. Parrots are not domesticated. They're as intelligent as toddlers, and some can live as long as we can, like birds like Rio and the larger parrots. When I originally took this job at Parrot Garden over 8 years ago, I had no idea that I would spend about half of my time caring for the parrots and the other half just educating visitors about all things parrot. It's our job to advocate for the proper care of future parrots so one day there won't be a need for parrot rescues. So, thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah.
So we didn't lose any goats this year. Pretty good. I'm Rosalie. In pigs, we lost 5. We lost Willow, Kevin, if anybody remembers him from the t-shirt, that Kevin t-shirt, Napoleon, Fifi, and Charlotte. This is kind of like one of the worst days of the year, but it's also a really good day because I've noticed that I get to see the same faces every year and like the same caregivers, and we all kind of get together and talk about like what we went through this year with these animals and how much we loved them. So I always feel really honored to do it because I'm with the pigs 5 days a week. So, I mean, it's all day, every day. And I also notice we're also always trying to educate. Like as soon as one of the caregivers gets on a topic about the animals that we work with, it's just like fact, 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 because it's just like, we're just so thirsty to educate and make these animals' lives better. So it's just very honorable to do it every year with the same group of people. So anyway, so Willow is the first one I'll talk about. She was another office pig. So you have to get along with dogs. A really nice story about Willow is after we crossed her, her mom actually, the lady who surrendered her, who had her for 5 years and then surrendered her to best friends, and we had her from I think like 16 or 17 until this year. She sent us this really sweet card. She sent us this like beautiful letter about how much it meant to her that we took care of Willow for so long. And then she sent my favorite, oh no, baby pictures. My favorite. I'll be really fast. So it's a circle of life. You know, it's cliche, but it is. It's a natural part of our life. And it's a beautiful part too, which is why I think it's important to talk about it. And every year have a cathartic, like rush of emotion. So I'll probably go home and cry. Anyway, Kevin, and then Fifi. So Fifi would get a joint supplement twice a day, and that's always how she would ask for it. And then Napoleon, just our sweet old man, cancer, you know, it happens. And then Charlotte was our other pig, I'm pretty sure. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. So yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about him, and like I'm really honored, and thank you guys for always letting me come up here and talk about him every year. So yeah, that's that.
My name is Karen Hamilton, and I'm a local volunteer at Horsehaven. So at Horsehaven, we have about 40 to 50 horses, donkeys, ponies, and mules at any one time. And last year, 5 of our horses crossed the Rainbow Bridge. So I have the privilege of telling you about each of them. The first one I'm going to talk about is Sheriff. He was 25, a gray horse of mixed breed who arrived with 3 mares and was then placed in a different but nearby paddock. Soon afterwards, a gate was accidentally left open and Sheriff made his move. A caregiver came over right away, and before returning him, decided to walk with him as he made his way slowly and steadily back to the mares. But Sheriff was most famous, next one, for the magnificent mustache at the end of his muzzle, which curled endearingly at both ends. It's a horse trait which is common to some breeds. You can take the next one too. Because he was an older horse and he got a bucket of soaked green hay pellets instead of regular hay for his food, the mustache was often a delightful green after his meal. Sheriff's health declined after time, and an enlarged joint on its front leg was visible evidence of painful arthritis. It became difficult, if not impossible, for him to lie down and then get up for his really necessary REM sleep. So on January 9th, he was helped across the Rainbow Bridge with much love and respect. Hadda. Hadda was a 32-year-old Rush Creek Arabian, a breed known for endurance and trail riding. Although she was adopted and returned twice, she's been loved her entire life. A staff member recalled Hadda as sweet and assuming. But that doesn't mean she was a pushover. When she was first introduced to her paddock mates, that was Helen, the blind horse, and Snickers, the 34-year-old pony, Snickers said, "Don't worry, I got this, I'll be the boss." And she wasn't persuaded. And despite both of their advanced ages and her arthritis, you can do the next one, there were kicks and squeals for at least an hour before Snickers gave in. Always one to actually run to her stall for every meal, staff knew there was a problem when this past February 28th, she lay down as the feed truck arrived. She was helped across the Rainbow Bridge with love and respect. Next horse. This is Quinn, sometimes called Quinny. He was a very handsome Arabian horse, about 24 years old, who came to Best Friends 3 years ago with his horse friend named Buddy. Last year, after Buddy got adopted, Quinn was moved into a paddock with 3 mares, and he was totally up for the challenge. He was especially fond of a pretty red horse named Rosie and would snuggle up to her and also protect her every time she lay down to nap. Like Sheriff, Quinny was having some tremendous difficulty getting up and down and choosing not to get his necessary deep sleep. His struggles continued to worsen, and he was helped across the Rainbow Bridge on April 22nd with love and respect. Rose was a Mustang mare, about 6 or 7 years old, who was taken in by the BLM in one of their regular Mustang roundups. And then she was sold in 2022 to a private individual for training. She was surrendered to Best Friends a year later. Beautiful Rose was very much a wild horse. The senior trainer at Horse Haven worked slowly and gently with her, and by this year, Rose had started to become more curious and more willing to interact with more people. Rose enjoyed living with and being the boss of the other mares in her paddock. The most recent ones included another Mustang and the 2 who were rescued separately from Lake Powell, Emma and Solo. On August 9th, Rose experienced a form of colic that had severe pain. While she hadn't been willing to allow much medical attention, this time she allowed the staff to administer IV fluids to flush out her system. And after monitoring her into the next day, they determined there was a total blockage, which would be fatal. And she was helped across the Rainbow Bridge on August 10th with love and respect. This is Tony. Tony was in a class of his own. Even the pack of note cards that Best Friends co-founder and artist Cyrus Mejia created includes Tony. Tony was a 17-year-old Pinto gelding who came to Best Friends in 2016 through an agency that rescued him from severe abuse. That abuse was visible across his body in displaced bones and permanent scars. Like Rose, Tony enjoyed various horse buddies, but people not so much. He warmed only to a few staff and a few volunteers. Tony could be haltered and given basic hoof, dental, and medical care, skills that Rose continued to work on, if the caregivers were gentle and patient. One of those caregivers said that Tony taught her more about horses than she could ever teach him about people. She had to learn to watch for all the tiny, varied, subtle body cues that he used to communicate. Over the years, Tony lived in several different paddocks, and when he was at the Disney barn, staff would somewhat regularly find empty Dorito bags there. Now, with your own horse, you might learn that certain snacks are okay, but Horse Haven, with so many horses on special diets, random unauthorized snacks can not only be dangerous, but it can be fatal. In the last 2 years, Tony became re-injured in interactions with other horses, and despite medical care and even surgery in Las Vegas, it kept getting more painful for him to stand, and that made him susceptible to other smaller injuries and wounds. The progression was not a positive arc, and on August 25th, he was helped across the Rainbow Bridge. His last meal included horse cookies drizzled with molasses and Cool Ranch Doritos, just in case. A senior staffer at Horse Haven, one of his favorites, said she's grateful that for the last half of his life, Tony was happy and he finally got to be himself. Thank you.
So, like the rest of the caregivers and small animals, it feels like when our animals pass, there's kind of we get less sympathy because they're starter animals, they're objectified. But every single bunny in this stack of photos was everything people want bunnies to be. Like, they were very sweet and curious, and they made me a better person. for sure. Without them, I wouldn't be who I am. So we have Cadbury, Miss Caddy, because she's a chocolate girl. We have Bumblebee, which unfortunately Bumblebee was only with us for a few days. She came to us in bad condition, but I'm glad she got some care before she passed away. And then we have Discovery. Discovery was just a baby, and unfortunately, we see that happen a lot with bunnies, but he was in foster for most of his life with us, so he was very happy. And we have Hopper. And Hopper was a very big bunny. And she was the one we pointed to when you needed a good pet. She'd let you pet her forever. And we have Sterling. She was a long-term resident for us. And her little buddy Sebastian is still looking for his second wife. I don't know if he's gonna find one this special. And then there's Hope, my girl. Hope was a bunny I interacted with almost every day for my first 2 years at Bunnies. And we knew a week before that she was gonna pass. We had planned her crossing for a week before. And so we got time to spend with her and spoil her. But I wouldn't describe losing her as sad. Like, I was very grateful to know Hope. And then if you know anything about bunnies, they're not taken care of great. Hope could have ended up anywhere in a situation where most bunnies end up not cared for, not loved. And she was surrounded by all of us. 6 people came and held her while she passed, and holding Hope while she passed. Also on her for her ceremony, her placement, it rained, so. And it thundered, so. But she was a sweet girl, so it's But holding Hope during her crossing changed my brain chemistry. Like Arabelle was saying, when you hold them, especially prey animals, and they feel safe with you, it's something entirely different than anything I've ever felt before. And when I look back on Hope's crossing, I don't really feel sad. I feel profound gratitude that out of all the places she could have ended up, she ended up with us and being cared for and loved in the way that she deserved. So she's coming down in the raindrops, so.
Hi, I'm Bart, and I'm from Wild Friends, and I'm very new here. As Arabelle said, all our time with the animals are too short. But I feel like when I look at this list, it seemed really short because some of them had passed within a month of me starting. So I would at least recognize the few that I had a chance to meet for a very brief time. But and then I want to talk about a very special friend. This year we lost Little One, our mink, Kizzy, our crow, Frost, Atlas, and Rose, 3 of our pigeons, Elf, our cute little hedgehog, Gobi, our Mojave, one of our now 6 Mojave desert tortoises, and then my best friend, Johnny. He's a Peking duck, and I can't talk about him without talking about his flock. So this is Johnny, and this is what we used to call, I'm from Indiana, ducky weather. So he would have loved this. And this is Johnny in the front. Wild Friends started with 2 ducks, Jack and Anthony. And then they were here for a short time before we ended up picking up a 3rd duck named Serene. And unfortunately, Serene, Jack and Anthony did not vibe well together. So we had to separate Serene, and Serene got his own enclosure. And he was lonely, but we spent a lot of time with him. But it wasn't too long after that we got a call that there was another domestic duck at the reservoir. So we went and picked him up and brought him back here. And immediately after introducing Johnny to Serene, they became best friends. It was fun to watch them snuggle up with each other, whether they were sunbathing or eating or playing in the pond. Johnny loved the pond. Peking ducks are a very large breed duck, and I think Johnny knew that, and so he took it to the extreme, and he was a very large duck who unfortunately had very bad arthritis because of that. So that caused him to be a little bit slower getting out of the pond and walking across the enclosure. But Serene was his best friend, so Serene would walk a little bit slower to make sure Johnny was right behind him, and occasionally looking back for Johnny. And Johnny repaid that favor by not eating all the food. They shared somewhat equally. And Johnny loved grapes, and you can almost see the expression of disappointment when you showed up without them. And last year was a rough year for me. Right after I started, I lost my sister and my dog. So coming here was incredible, but I had mixed feelings. Leaving my family in Indiana. But the animals, I think, sensed that and made me feel at home. But Johnny knew what I needed. He was a very quiet duck. And if you've ever heard ducks, they can be pretty rambunctious with their quacking. And Johnny was very silent, so he let me come and sit with him a lot. And he knew that the silence is what I needed, which was really needed. And then the arthritis and some other health issues kind of began to take its toll and get worse. And so instead of coming out of the pond to eat, Johnny would starve himself by sitting in the pond. So we took turns as caretakers and sat at the edge of the pond, and I don't know if anybody else was brave enough to do it, but I would take my shoes off and put my feet in the water, in the gross water that they live in. And I would hang out with Johnny and Serene, and I would feed Johnny from the shore. But unfortunately it wasn't enough. So now we just said goodbye to Johnny recently. We just hope that he's enjoying his big pond and grapes in the sky. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tom. I'm a caregiver in Dogtown. And I want to talk about 3 Dogtown residents that crossed this past year. But before I do that, I just want to mention real quick 2 personal animals. My fellow staffer, Lori Fisher, and her husband, Matt, lost their dog, Isabel, just recently. So I want to acknowledge that and let Matt and Lori know that we're thinking of them. I also lost one of my own dogs, Marina, back in April. Marina was what we call a res dog, which is short for reservation. These are dogs that we assist in rescuing off the Navajo Nation, generally speaking. And Marina was in my home for 10 years. I brought her home and I had 3 other dogs. And one of those dogs was a great role model dog. Good with people, good with other dogs, comfortable in his own skin. I was hoping that Marina could learn how to be a normal dog from him. I had another dog in my home who was a terrible role model dog. Samurai was a loud, obnoxious, barky hound, and all he wanted to do was chase lizards in the yard and dig holes in my grass. Then I had a third dog who was a shy little cattle dog, and his name was Mesquite. And he was about 35 pounds, and Marina was about the same size. And for the 10 years that they lived together, they were the best of friends. Those 2 little 35-pound dogs would be constantly buddied up to each other, and if one was on the couch, the other one would join. So I just wanted to remember Marina. It was great having her in my life and in my home for 10 years. Now let's go to the first photo, please. This is Trinity. As you can see, Trinity is one of those short-coated, muscular, blocky-headed dogs that we all love. And Trinity was a longtime Dogtown resident. Trin Trin, as we called her, was a real feisty little firecracker throughout most of her life. And I had the pleasure of being her caregiver for probably about the last 2 to 3 years of her life. So she, at that stage in her life, she had accumulated some medical issues, particularly arthritis, and I don't know if you can see it really well in that picture, but her right elbow was kind of splayed out a little bit. She had some pretty severe arthritis in that elbow. Trinity was really popular with our volunteer base. She went on many, many sleepovers. She also has a giant following out there in the social media world on Facebook, and people who would follow the posts that we would make and ask about Trinity and comment on Trinity and what's Trinity up to now. And one of Trinity's favorite things to do here in the latter stages of her life was to go for a golf cart ride. So it was very difficult for her to walk on her arthritic limbs. And so what we did was substitute golf cart rides, and you could just see her beaming as the wind would blow her ears back and the sun would shine on her face, and she just enjoyed that more than anything else at the end of her time. Thanks. Let's go to the next one. Great. This is Jessa, also another short-coated, blocky-headed, muscular dog that we all love. There's a theme here. Jessa came to us from our Los Angeles facility a couple of years ago, maybe about 3 years ago, and she had a little history in Los Angeles, which made her a staff-only dog when she first arrived here in Dogtown. And we could tell, me and my fellow caregivers could tell that Jessa was not only a comedian, but fun to be with. She had a lively personality, and she was super friendly with people. So we knew right away that this hidden gem had a real shine to her, and we worked with our management, and we got Jessa into a volunteer-friendly category, and so she could start to go on sleepovers and meet people who came to volunteer with us. And wouldn't you know it, on one of those occasions where she went on a sleepover, they asked if they could take her a second night in a row, and those people ended up adopting Jessa. So there's a happy part of this story, and that is that Jessa got to live her last 7 or 8 months in an adopted home with people who absolutely adored her. She became, instead of Los Angeles and Kanab, Utah, she became a Chicago dog. And that's where she lived until she crossed just about 2 weeks ago. Jessa was one of my favorites. She was a blast to be a caregiver for, so funny and so much fun to be with. So we're real happy that Jessa eventually ended up finding a home. And then the last dog that I'll talk about, his name is Abbott.
That's you.
That is me. I don't really know where to start with Abbott. Abbott lived most of his life in Dogtown. He was a stray who couldn't be kept in the home where the man who found him lived. And so Abbott came to Dogtown in about 2013. And about that same time, he was introduced to a dog named Winter. And the two of those dogs lived happily together for their entire lives here in Dogtown. Since from 2013. So that's about 12 years of coexisting and living together. And they were what we would call a bonded pair. They were so in tune with each other. Lots of dogs can tolerate being with another dog, and living with another dog is kind of hard sometimes. These two were the perfect match, Abbott and Winter. A couple things that I remember most about Abbott, and this picture is a perfect representation of Abbott's adventure spirit. Abbott was up for anything, whether it be a hike in the woods or out through the bushes. Here he is plowing through some knee-deep water with me in a slot canyon. He was up for car rides or rides on the golf cart. Anything that you wanted to do, Abbott was up for it. He was, back in those early days, a staff-only dog, which means he didn't have any exposure to volunteers. But another adventure that I'll tell you about real quick was one time I took Abbott to an ophthalmologic appointment in Las Vegas. He had some blood pooling in the capillaries in his eye, and we couldn't figure out what was going on or how to treat it. So our doctor sent him to a specialist, and I said, of course I'll drive my buddy Abbott to Las Vegas. Abbott would be up for the adventure, and so would I. So back in his prime, Abbott was, let's just say, not easy for medical. And so I practiced with him, and I introduced him to the vet techs in Dogtown, and I introduced him to some doctors, and we practiced a little bit. And we got to the appointment, and I was so concerned that Abbott was going to lunge and snap at the doctor, especially looking into his eye, and that he would bite the fingers off the vet techs, but he didn't. He was great. He was perfect, actually. And I felt that as long as he was with me, that he trusted the scenario that was going on. And he knew I wouldn't put him in a bad situation. However, leaving the specialist's office, as we walked through the lobby, he growled and snapped at this adorable little puppy that was just waiting their turn in the lobby. So he was great with the people, but not really good with the little puppy that was waiting. I talked a little bit about Winter and their lifetime of living together. I think the thing that makes me the happiest and I'm most proud about Abbott is how he grew in his time in Dogtown from a staff-only, hard to meet, hard to interact with strangers dog. And around about 2019, we changed the way that we do things in Dogtown, and Abbott was afforded a lot more opportunities to meet people, and he got a lot of practice. And he practiced with volunteers, and he practiced with staff, and he became really, really good at meeting. In fact, he looked forward to it, and he would wag his little nub of a tail when he came out to meet somebody, and he knew he was going to get a treat for meeting this new person. And so I'm really proud of the way that Abbott went from, no, you can't meet him, to yes, he would love to meet you. I think that speaks volumes for the work that animal care areas do with our dogs, with the animals in our care, and also it speaks volumes for Abbott. My friend Melissa, who works in Parrots, had the opportunity to meet Abbott several years ago, and my friend Angie, who's going to speak next to you as soon as I'm done rambling, she also had the pleasure of meeting Abbott and being his friend. For 10 years, I was Abbott's caregiver, I was Abbott's adventure buddy, and I was Abbott's really good friend. And I think you guys have heard of the movie Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Abbott was one of those fantastic beasts. And I always knew where to find him, right here next to me. Thanks, Patty.
Beautiful, Tom. Thank
you.
you.
First of all, I just want to acknowledge my fellow coworkers for getting up here to speak as well, because as a former caregiver, I fall in love with each and every animal, and I understand what it's like so much to lose your family. So today,
Just take a minute and look at those pictures to center yourself. That's ridiculous. I like them just a little bit.
yeah. So when I left Minneapolis, I was volunteering for an organization called My Pit Bulls Family, and they work on housing and insurance discrimination for pit bulls, but other large breed dogs. And my fellow volunteers gave me this wonderful photo of Ruby and Simon, so it hangs in my office. Also, I wanted to say I'm sorry to Tom, because I know that's a lot of loss, and I personally knew those dogs as well, so it's been tough. But today, I'm here to honor my soul dog and best friend Simon, who crossed the Rainbow Bridge on October 17th, 2023. Simon came from the Leech Lake Reservation in northern Minnesota. His original name was Miigwech, which means thank you in Ojibwe. He was in foster with Minnesota Pit Bull Rescue, and that's where I saw his silly, unforgettable face on their website. At the time, we already had our dog Ruby, who was reactive towards other dogs. I honestly had no idea how she would respond to him. And this was before I was in animal welfare, and we just kind of threw them together. So thankfully it worked out okay. Also, to our surprise and relief, she tolerated him. So we welcomed him into our home. Simon was a wild child, always getting into something he shouldn't, and pestering his sister every chance he got. We did a lot of training classes together, and he seemed to truly enjoy it. It gave his wonderfully busy mind something to focus on. I'm proud to say that he earned his American Kennel Club Canine Good Citizen certificate. Simon also became a bit of a social media star for the nonprofit My Pit Bull's Family, and was featured on their social media for a weekly series called Simon Says Fridays. We also attended their events together. People were just drawn to him. Throughout his lifetime, Simon faced many illnesses and injuries, but he always met them with patience and resilience. In fact, he loved going to the clinic. I used to joke that if he could live there, he would. He would have been perfectly happy, soaking up all the attention and treatment. But eventually, Simon was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. It took him far too soon. His loss has been incredibly hard. His original name, Miigwech, always carried deep meaning for me, as though he was saying thank you for giving him a chance at life. On the 1-year anniversary of his passing, I got a tattoo on my wrist, his name in Ojibwe, followed by a floral design. Now I can look down at my wrist, see his name, and say thank you right back to him. What a gift it was to be his mom, and what a gift it is that even in his absence, he still helps me heal. We also lost our Ruby to cancer on December 16th, 2024. I take comfort in knowing that they are together again, although Ruby probably isn't so excited by that. I often visit their wind chimes at Angels Overlook, letting the music and the breeze remind me of the love we shared. I also want to let you know, if you're struggling with the loss of a beloved animal, please know that Best Friends has resources here to help you. And most of all, remember, you are not alone in your grief. Miigwech.
As we come to the close of our program, we offer up a beautiful soul whom I've just begun to know and yet feel like my kindred sister. After listening to everyone today, you hear so many mixes of sadness, joy, gratitude, honor. All of those things are wrapped up into our love and care of the animals who touch our lives. Where would we be without them? I can't even imagine, not even for 1 minute, how empty my life would be without those souls that run through my life and my very existence. And I hold on to that in the sad times and in the good. Shelley is the founder of Sage Soul. Shelley reminds me so much of a lioness in her strength, watching her cubs scanning the terrain for danger and giving them a safe space to grow, giving them an opportunity as she nurtures and cares. She walks alongside us, guiding all the way. I'm so grateful to you for being here today, for your beautiful music and your beautiful soul.
Yes, thank you again for for holding off just a little longer. It's such an honor to be here with you all, and it was such a moving experience to listen to everyone's stories and to feel those emotions and remember when those things happened in our lives. So, beloved friends, old and new, we are gathered here today in a sacred circle of remembrance. Beneath this beautiful, wide desert sky, surrounded by the spirit of all living things and those who have passed on, we come together to honor those companions who walked with us for a time through our homes, our laughter, our tears, and our quiet moments of stillness. They were never just our animal companions. They were family. They were teachers. They were guardians of joy, healers of sorrow, and keepers of a love so pure it seemed to come directly from the heart of the divine. I invite you to take a moment to look around this gathering. Notice the faces beside you. Notice the unity of this gathering. We are joined not only by our shared grief, but also by love that binds us across species, across time, across the veil between this world and the next. Being asked to do the benediction today is particularly poignant for me and my family because we lost a member of our family this month. A scrappy, sweet pug Maltese mix that I helped to deliver on Christmas Day in 2008. We promptly named her Merry Christmas. She was quickly claimed by my oldest daughter as her best friend, and they grew up together. Mary went to college with her and was her source of security, calm, comfort, and joy when she had to be far from home. What a precious time we had with Mary, and we're so grateful to have had almost 17 years with her. Yeah. And so I invite you to think back to the first time you met your beloved companion. Maybe it was the way their eyes found yours, as though they already knew you. Maybe it was a gentle paw reaching through a kennel door. Maybe it was a bird hopping into your hand, or a horse leaning its great weight against your side in trust. In those first moments, something shifted inside you. A bond was formed, invisible, unexplainable, yet undeniable. In their presence, we learned patience. In their play, we rediscovered wonder. In their loyalty, we found devotion. And in their love, we caught a glimpse of eternity. I invite you to breathe in deeply. Let a memory arise, a moment when your companion made you laugh, when they comforted you, when you felt seen in their eyes. And hold that moment tenderly. And now, let us invite gratitude into our hearts. Close your eyes if you wish. And imagine the feel of their fur beneath your hand, or the softness of feathers brushing your skin, the shimmer of scales in the light. Hear that sound of their bark, or the purr, or a whinny, or the song. and feel the warmth of their presence beside you. Remembering their rituals of love, that morning greeting that started your day, the way they waited for you at the door, the comfort of their weight curled against you at night, and the way they always seemed to know when you needed them most. These companions gave us their whole selves. They asked for so little and offered so much. They loved us without condition, without judgment, without reservation. Their love was steady like a river that never stops flowing. And so together, let us whisper our thanks into the peace of the sanctuary. Thank you. Thank you for your joy. Thank you for your lessons. Thank you for your unwavering love. Thank you for walking with me, even for a little while, on this great journey of life. Let us pause so we can remember them all in a moment of silence. Though they no longer walk at our side, we know they are not lost. They have simply gone on ahead, across that rainbow bridge, into that vast mystery that awaits us all. They're not gone, they are transformed. Their essence has returned to the great circle of being, the eternal current that flows through all creation. And now they roam fields without fences. They soar in skies without end. They swim in waters clear and eternal. And they rest in peace and in joy and in freedom. And so we bless them. May your path be filled with light and play. May your spirit be nourished by joy. May you always feel the love that still flows to you from this side of the bridge. And we bless ourselves. May our grief soften with time. May our sorrow open into gratitude. May our hearts remain open, willing to love again, even though love brings the risk of loss. For every new creature who enters our lives carries a piece of those who came before. A reminder that love never dies. It only changes form. Thank you.
thank you all for being here today. There's nothing like being out here at Angel's Rest and experiencing what we experienced today. And to be here with one another. And to hope and work towards that place of joy. But we know we also have to walk through this moment that we're in. And I think we just embrace it, right? We embrace it, and at some point, we can let it go to the wind. But that's in our own time, always in our own time. So this concludes our annual blessing. However, we could not let you go off without a blessing from Josh. Josh, the amazing Josh Nunez. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
We're gonna hold off. We just need like 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Patty. This time in remembrance, we have a very small department here at Best Friends, and during this time of remembrance, there was a few names I just kind of wanted to bring up. Joan Dunn being one of them, Mr. Dave Abrams, and Faith Maloney. All three of them were connected here to us and what we do here. Faith being very influential on how we do things here and guaranteed she would have been at this blessing. Mr. Dave would have been at this blessing. Joan would have been here as well. So I just kind of wanted to remember them and thank them. And I have just a small blessing that I normally say at the end of our placements that we have here at the Rest or at the Overlook. Earth Mother, guardian of four directions, please guide our loved ones that we have lost home, for the circle of life begins. Oh. Again, thank you everybody for attending. Safe travels home.